In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to accentuate the form and the light in the painting. Because a lot of times photographs, we take them as reality, they often don't handle the light or the color very well, and it loses a lot of form. And if we copy it as we see it from the photograph, our painting is going to lack the same thing. So we have to learn how to use values and planes and accentuate the form and light to create more sense of sunlight and depth in our painting. Now this is the reference we're going to be using in this lesson, and again it's how to accentuate values and contrast and color to make your photograph look three-dimensional or more three-dimensional and have some space. Because I think we get stuck in the idea of photographs, painting them as we see them, trees, rocks, hills, mountains, rivers, and we're copying what we're seeing without accentuating things that make it look more three-dimensional. For instance, when I look at this tree right here, it has a definite shape to it, but what makes it look like a tree is when I really accentuate the shape a bit more. Because too often we'll pick a tree that is too symmetrical and it looks real to us because it's in a photograph and we just copy it as we see it. But I want to accentuate the shape a little bit more and then the planes on the tree. I mean, the tree is an upright plane, but the minute I do that, keep the dark simple, keep the light really separate, the more it jumps out as a solid tree. And also, the simpler I can keep it, the better. And same thing with all these trees. When I look at this tree, I see a shape like this, and then I see the light plane right here. So I'm going to really separate the dark and light. Now there might be a couple of edges where I soften between the dark and light, but if I don't really accentuate that a little more than what I see, it's not going to work. This is a good example here. You don't see much of a difference in the dark and light, but if I draw this, and again it's kind of a symmetrical bush. It kind of looks like that, almost kind of a diamond shape, which is not good. So what I want to do is maybe have it a little fuller down in here and then have it not so full on this side. But then I want to see a definite dark side in here, and I'm accentuating that difference between the dark and the light, making more shapes in there to make it look more three-dimensional. The trees here are a good example. You really see it. There's a real definite dark shape in here, and that's where I get my design, is getting that overall shadow pattern, that shape. And then what's left is this light in here, and I can vary the shape. And that accentuating makes that tree look more three-dimensional. Some of that is easy. This one's easy to do because you can see it that way. But when I get to something like this, I know the light is coming probably a little bit from the front. It's almost backlighting, so it's coming down that way. So again, I want to accentuate the dark a bit more, and then the light in here. So again, I have that three-dimensional dark and light thing going to make it more three-dimensional. And the same holds true with the hills. The more I can simplify them, these don't work that well as much as far as really pushing the darks. But when I look at this hill here, I could keep it simple with just maybe one value because it's far away. But when I look at this and I want to show more three dimensions, I want to see the dark shape on the hill there and then the light shape here. And if I really push that, it's all going to stay fairly light because it's in the distance, but separating those values, again, it just makes it look three-dimensional, have more form and shape, more sense of light. The more I can do that, the better. Now compositionally on this works pretty good. It has a variety of shapes of trees. What I don't like, there's a tree here I think, and it might not be a tree, but I would just carry this light on across and get rid of that shadow so that this big shape doesn't come out of the bottom and come up here. I want to have the light come around that way, and then a shape of a bush, shape of that tree, and so on. So I want to stop that dark shape from going straight down. And I might eliminate this bush. I could see sticking it over here to balance out these heavy shapes here. But what I really like about this is the angled lines. I got a lot of, starting with these trees, so a strong angled line going this way, kind of a straight line there. Angled line there, a little bit of a straight line there, but then a bunch of angled lines as these shapes go back. And then these shapes are fairly straight, but not too straight. A bunch of angled lines on the hills and a variety of shapes on these trees. Different sizes, overlapping, and all that creates a lot of depth. And I can overlap one tree in front of the other. That really creates a lot of space. So I'm going to accentuate those shapes. I don't have to mess with them. A lot of times in the photographs, I like the light and I like an overall feel that's going on, but I don't have to, sometimes I have to go ahead and push the shapes a little bit differently to create more interest. But these are pretty good. I like the lighting. It's a little on the greenish side, so I'm going to do a little color changing to get more variety of color so it doesn't turn all green. One way of doing that is just getting a variety of greens. You got a real light yellow green here. Got blue green in here. Maybe a violet green or a red green up in here. And these are all just greens with the red or the yellow or the violet added to them. This is more of a olive green or green with orange in it. And this is a green with a little purple added to it. This kind of sage shrubbery in here. And those are all different greens. Grass is kind of a yellow green. Then you have the layering of the little more greenish or kind of bluish green, then a stronger blue-green, a lot less yellow, till there's no yellow in the blues back in here. And then the sky is going blank. It's just washed out. There's no color in it. Sometimes the photograph, when it picks up nice color and values in the darks, the lights get too light, especially the sky, and it just turns white. So I want a yellow in here because the sun is close to right there. So when the sun is, of course I'm not looking directly into the sun, it's a little higher, but it's in front of me. So the sky is going to be a very strong yellow because I'm almost looking into it. I can always add a little bit of pale blue into that, but I want to start with that using color to suggest light. Now looking at some other images here, I've got a William Went. You can see the way he accentuates shape on the trees and on the mountains. And I don't know, these trees are designed real well. I don't know how much he changed them, but that's a real nice shape in there. But what really makes it hold together is this definite dark pattern. And it meanders a little bit, but it's all somewhat connected also. And even if it's not directly connected, your eye kind of makes the jump into here. But real nice solid shape. And he accentuates the shape, simplifying it. Same thing in here. Now here are the lights coming this way. So he's going to, more than what he sees, he's going to separate those lights and darks so the light's on that side. Because a lot of times the form gets kind of mushy and dissolves and you don't see the light as well. So just you have to really remember what direction the light's coming from and then push a little bit better design on the trees. And it's hard at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. I don't know if it's ever easy, but you start to understand it better. And also looking and see how other artists simplify like this. When I'm studying paintings, that's the main thing I'm looking for. It's not necessarily their color, because everybody sees color differently, or brush technique, but it's how they simplify shapes. And here he accentuates the shape of the mountains by really keeping the darks very simple. And the lights somewhat simple, but really emphasizing these dark shapes, separating it from the light to get a real solid shape. And that's the main thing he does in the trees. He separates the darks and the lights real strongly, a lot more than what he sees. And that's what we're going to be doing, is pushing that more than what we see in the photograph. This is an Edgar Payne. He does the same thing here with the mountains. He's simplified those mountains. He's made shapes that read better than what he's seen. You can also see it in these trees. Really separates that dark from the light. A lot more than what he's seeing, so that it looks more three-dimensional. You also want to push, accentuate the distant color more than you see. So he's really cooled down these darks on the mountains and really darkened the shadows on the trees up front. So there's a big jump in value between these two. And he's push that more than what he saw, because you have to, because we're creating the illusion of depth, and we're probably doing that more than trying to paint what we see, because our canvas is flat, and if we don't push it, our canvas is going to look flat. But when we accentuate those differences, the dark against the light, accentuate the shapes, dark from light. You get more sense of depth and a solid three-dimensional look. And good job of the values from front to middle ground too. Dark, lighter dark, and the lightest dark. Back in there's the lightest. So it's got about 4 levels of dark here. And when he pushes it like that, that goes a long way to really increase the idea of shape. You can also see that his colors, his strongest green is in here. These foreground trees. Real strong greens. Maybe viridian and cad yellow light or ultramarine blue and cad yellow light. Back in here, he's got more blue with maybe a little bit of ochre. Maybe blue and ochre with a touch of light alizarin crimson. Something to mute it, make it more of an olive green, a little grayer. So that difference in the greens creates a lot of depth also. These mountains are kind of a grayish color, kind of a grayish red. So he's either used a gray or a black, and he's mixed several varieties of red with that. Or it could be orange, or it could be orange and blue to make the grays. But he's got a kind of an orange gray here, got some violet grays, a little bit of green gray, blue gray up in here. So a lot of variety of gray in the background. There's color back there, there's reds and oranges, but they're all very gray, very cool as well. Even the sunlit rocks look cool compared to the sunlit greens on the trees. So really push those differences to get that separation of color, separation of value and shape, and create a lot of distance and depth on the painting.